Keep yourself in the loop of everything football on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. The latest news on and off the field, be it college football, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC to the NFL. We've got you covered. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
All right, and welcome to the GSMC Football Podcast. This episode is brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network, and as always, I am your host, Jesse Tapia. All right, yesterday I told you why your team won't win the Super Bowl. At least I did for some of you. All right, if you got a team in the AFC East, NFC East, AFC North, or NFC North, then I told you why your team's not winning it this year. Now, if your team plays in the AFC South, NFC South, AFC West, NFC West, I will be telling you today why your team isn't winning the Super Bowl. All right, I'm going to tell you all about your team's weaknesses because I know everything. All right, and I'm only kidding about that, but nonetheless, I'm going to try and point out your team's weaknesses. Okay, so that's how today's show is going to go. Pretty simple. Now it's just a matter of deciding who we're going to start with. All right. So like I said, we did the AFC East, NFC North, AFC North. Let's start off with the AFC West. Okay. The AFC West is probably one of the more intriguing divisions for me, just given the fact that there's a lot of these teams here that could do either really good this season or just really poorly. Like, there's no in between. All right. Like with the Broncos, for instance, have been without a actual good quarterback the last 2 years. All right, and have struggled. Before those 2 years of struggling, they won the Super Bowl. Had a defense that looked like it was an all-time great defense. All right, now when you got 2-3 bad quarterbacks playing for you for 2 years, your defense is going to struggle because they're on the field for the majority of the game. All right. So we've kind of forgotten how good the Broncos were. Now they bring in Case Keenum. Broncos could be a whole lot better. Could even be Super Bowl contenders. Okay, dare I say it. I mean, Case Keenum got the Vikings to the NFC Championship last year. Who's to say he can't take this Broncos team over there to the AFC Championship? Okay. Broncos still got a lot of good pieces on that defense. Are they going to be all-time great? I'm not sure. But nonetheless, could have a top 5 defense in the league if they're not on the field constantly. I mean, just imagine you got Bradley Chubb and Von Miller on the outside. Okay. Brandon Marshall, Todd Davis at the linebacker spots, along with whoever else they throw out there. And then the secondary still looking pretty good. And as far as the offense goes, running backs is a bit scarce there. I mean, you got Royce Freeman that you drafted and Devontae Booker that you've had. Still got Demaryius Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders. I also think Cortland Sutton's going to be pretty good too. The guy they drafted out of SMU. All right. So the Broncos definitely are a team who could be Super Bowl contenders. There's not going to be too many people who are saying it out loud, just given the fact that it's a bit of a hot take. Okay. But if this team could get anywhere near the type of play that they had in 2014, 2015 when they won it, then they got a chance. Okay. But they're not going to win the Super Bowl this year because of the fact that, let's see, why isn't Denver winning the Super Bowl? Because everyone on the team's starting to get older. Demaryius Thomas is 30. All right, Emmanuel Sanders is entering like his 10th year in the league. You got a tight end in Jake Butt who tore his ACL last year. You drafted him last year. Now you're expecting him to be a decent tight end for you this year. Like I said, your defense has gotten older. Aqib Talib's gone. Guys like Malik Jackson aren't there anymore. All right, so it's just a matter of this team's Super Bowl window closed this past season. Okay? Case Keenum's good, but this team wasted the last 2 years. And I think it's too little too late here. All right? So that's why Denver's not making the Super Bowl. And of course, I would not be surprised if they somehow got there. All right. Like I said, it's probably an easier chance to bank on them. Like I said, just not being at the level they used to be instead of returning to that. All right. So then we got the Kansas City Chiefs. They've made the playoffs the last few years. I mean, look good look good as a regular season team. Once they get to the playoffs, they seemingly just shrink. Okay? Whereas teams like the Ravens, who stink in the regular season, will play well in the playoffs. But obviously for the Ravens, it's tough for them to get there given the fact that, of course, they stink in the regular season. Okay? So with the Chiefs, I mean, they still have a good team. You got Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, Kareem Hunt. The only real worries I have with this team is at quarterback and defense. All right? Spent their entire draft on defensive players this year, as they should have. Okay, defense last year got a whole lot older and got a whole lot worse. Traded away Marcus Peters. Alex Smith's now in Washington. All right. Patrick Mahomes could be a good quarterback, but it's just a point of we haven't seen him take meaningful steps in the NFL yet. All right, and I could care less about that Week 17 game last year. Okay. But it's just a point where Kansas City's not making the Super Bowl because they seem to always struggle in the playoffs, and you got a rookie quarterback. He's not going to take you to the promised land in his first season as your starter. All right, it just simply doesn't work that way. I mean, the Chiefs are a team who could make the playoffs. I would not be surprised by that at all. But, of course, if they were to get there, I don't expect them to do too much, given the fact that, I mean, if Alex Smith couldn't do it in 3 years, what makes you think that Patrick Mahomes is going to be a great playoff performer in his first full season as a starter? All right, it just doesn't work out that way. It never has in the NFL. And if it has, it's only been maybe a rare couple of instances. Okay? So it's not likely. All right? Can the Chiefs win the Super Bowl in the coming years? If Mahomes is good? Sure. All right? But like I said, it didn't matter to me if they go 15-1 this season. I don't see it happening. All right? So like I said, quarterback's got to mature a bit. Kind of just got to develop, basically. Okay. Then we got the Oakland Raiders. All right. John Gruden's team now. 10-year, $100 million man. Never seen anything like that before in my life for a head coach. All right. He's doing life well. Are they going to win the Super Bowl this year? You got a young, good quarterback in Derek Carr. All right. You already paid him, so he's the franchise guy. You got a guy in Amari Cooper who, if he learned how to catch the ball and learned how to actually use his hands properly to catch the ball, would probably be a top 10 receiver in this league. You added a Martavius Bryant who might possibly be suspended. All right, you added Jordy Nelson who had a career worst season this past season. You got a defense who was one of the worst, if not the worst in the league last season. All right. And you got a team who failed expectations last season also. Okay. What's different about this team this year? Why should I believe in the Raiders? Is it because they brought in John Gruden, a career 500 coach, who won a Super Bowl with Tony Dungy's players? All right, after that Super Bowl did nothing. I'll give it to him. Before he went to the Bucs, he was really good with the Raiders. Probably would have won a Super Bowl with the Raiders if he doesn't get traded to Tampa Bay. All right, but nonetheless, the game's moved on. It's moved past them. Okay, you got John Gruden talking about the fact that he wants to bring back old school football and all. I'm not trying to be a hater or anything like that, but honestly think to yourself, when has a coach who has ever tried to do things the old way succeeded? All right. Football is a game where you got to move with it. And if you don't, you're going to get lost. All right. And you're going to struggle. And that's why I'm kind of nervous about this year's season for the Raiders. I think Gruden's trying to go way too far back in time. And I think he's going to struggle doing it. And so are the Raiders. All right. And I mean, the Raiders got Gruden no matter what for at least 5 years. There's no way you fire a coach after you gave him a 10-year deal worth $100 million after 3 or 4 years. Okay? And this could end up being one of the all-time worst contracts in NFL history. All right? I mean, let's say this Gruden thing doesn't work out. The Raiders are going to become the old Raiders. Meaning the Raiders from 2003 to, I guess, till they drafted Carr, they're just being a complete dumpster fire. All right? So it's up to them. But they're not making the Super Bowl because, I mean, the Raiders are a team who, I mean, they're not going to win the Super Bowl this year. All right? But they're going to win the Super Bowl in the coming years. All right? So it's up to them. But they're not making the Super Bowl because, I mean, the Raiders are a team who, I mean, they're not going to win the Super Bowl this year. All right? But they're going to win the Super Bowl in the coming years. All right? So it's up to them. But they're not making the Super Bowl because, John Gruden's trying to take him back. All right? It's a parity league. It's a league of parity. You got to copy what your counterparts are doing. All right? And I just think this year I don't really like the moves that the Raiders made. I don't think that Jordy Nelson at this point in his career is better than Michael Crabtree. Like I said, it's looking like Martavis Bryant might get suspended. So I just don't trust the Raiders right now. All right? I think those are fair reasons right there. And then for the final team of the AFC West, we got the Los Angeles Chargers. Still not used to saying that. All right. The Chargers have probably the best team they've had in years. All right. Probably the best team they've had since LT was on that squad. Defense is looking strong. Receivers are looking strong. Running back strong. Tight end was. Now that's a weak spot. And, of course, you got Phillip Rivers. I think this team is going to win the division this year. All right. But, of course, are they good enough to win a Super Bowl? They got talent. Okay? They have a veteran quarterback who's been around the way so far in the NFL. But can he win a Super Bowl? No. They're not winning a Super Bowl because Phillip Rivers most likely is going to choke in the playoffs. All right? Phillip Rivers just isn't a playoff-type performer. Okay? I think he's a Hall of Famer, but as far as the playoffs, it's never really been too good to him. I don't think the guy's ever beaten Tom Brady either. All right? Chances are if the Chargers make the playoffs, you probably will have to see the Patriots. And I'm not sure why Tom Brady is such a boogeyman for the Chargers. It's kind of like with LeBron and the Raptors, but nonetheless, yeah, Chargers won't win the Super Bowl because they just seem to always underperform in the playoffs year after year. Marty Schottenheimer years, even when they had Norv Turner, and now here we are. This is the new wave of playoff disappointment, I think. All right. And I want the Chargers to do well this season. Like I said, I think they're going to win the division, but can you trust them in the playoffs? I don't think so. So that's what I got to say about that division as far as their Super Bowl chances. All right, and of course, some team is going to win the Super Bowl. We're going to do this for all 32 teams, but of course, someone is going to win the Super Bowl. All right? I'm not saying no team is going to win the Super Bowl. I'm just trying to point out some weaknesses here and why they win it. Okay? But nonetheless, we're going to wrap it up here. Next up, we're going to be talking about let's talk NFC West, all right? So we'll do the NFC West next. So stay tuned, and I'll be right back.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red-hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's gsmcpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
All right, and welcome back to the GSMC Football Podcast. We spent the first segment talking about why teams of the AFC West won't win the Super Bowl. Now we're going to talk about why teams of the NFC West won't win the Super Bowl. All right. So let's start off with the Seahawks. Okay. Seahawks in the last 5 years, I'd say, have been to 2 Super Bowls. Okay. Won one, lost one. Lost one, it was all on Pete Carroll. All right, still not over that Super Bowl loss. I mean, all you had to do was give Marshawn the ball, Pete. Why didn't you do it? You think that still is in the back of Pete Carroll's mind? All right, and it probably isn't, but, I mean, there's always just that one play I feel like that's got to gnaw at a player or a coach. And, like, this definitely has to be the one for Pete Carroll. I mean, this has to be, like, his all-time regret right here. It's like with Kobe Bryant. There was documentaries with him. They ask him what his worst finals loss is, like which one that gnaws at him the most. It's the one against the Celtics where he got blown out by 41 in Game 6 of the 2008 series. Okay? I feel like Pete Carroll still has to think at least somehow about why he didn't give the ball to Marshawn Lynch. I mean, wasn't it second down at that time? All right. You only needed about a yard. Marshawn Lynch, who was nearly impossible to tackle all season long, and you choose to throw the ball. All right. I mean, that's an all-time blunder right there. Probably one of the worst plays in Super Bowl history, I'd say. At least for the Seahawks. For the Patriots, obviously, that's one of their best plays ever. All right. I mean, Pete Carroll messed it up, man. We had the crazy catch going against the Patriots, as we always do. When it was with the Giants, it was Mario Manningham and David Tyree in both of those games. Then we had Javon Curse. All right. And Pete Carroll ruined it. I mean, it was all the makings of another Super Bowl loss for the New England. And he threw the ball. I'll never understand why. Okay. Eventually, Marshawn Lynch leaves the team. And now we've got a mass exodus of players from the defense. All right. They got rid of Richard Sherman. Got rid of Michael Bennett. I don't think Cliff Avrill's with the team anymore. Okay. Cam Chancellor's dealing with an injury where he might not even be able to play ever again. Earl Thomas is looking for a new deal. I mean, nothing's really going too good over in Seattle. All right. They're winning the Super Bowl because they're not even going to make the playoffs. They don't have a team good enough to compete with these teams of the NFC. All right. They're not better than the Saints. They're not better than the Packers. They're not better than the Vikings. They're not better than the Falcons. They're not better than the Panthers. They're not better than the Rams. They're not better than the Cowboys, and they're not better than the Eagles. I don't even think they're better than the Redskins. Okay. And that's not necessarily a slide at the Seahawks or the Redskins. I think the Redskins are going to be a very decent team this season. All right. But yeah, they're missing way too much. I mean, they added Brandon Marshall to play alongside Doug Baldwin. I'm not sure how much I like that move. All right. Brandon Marshall's 34 years old, coming off of a season-ending injury. How many receivers do we see at that age off of season-ending injuries come back and be as strong as they were? All right. It really does not happen there. Okay. But of course, I mean, they do have Russell Wilson. You do have a top 5 head coach in Pete Carroll. Okay, I understand that he made a mistake in that Super Bowl, but nonetheless, I mean, all jokes aside, Pete Carroll definitely is a top 5 coach in the NFL. Okay. I mean, the Seahawks team could make the playoffs, but I just think they don't have enough talent too, so that's why they're not making the Super Bowl, or winning the Super Bowl, I should say. All right. Then we got the Arizona Cardinals. They went 8-8 last year. Played a handful of their games with Blaine Gabbert and Drew Stanton as their starting quarterback since Carson Palmer broke his arm. Carson Palmer is now retired, and Sam Bradford is the starting quarterback of the Arizona Cardinals until Josh Rosen is ready to take that over. Okay. You got David Johnson, who suffered a season-ending hand injury last year. All right, in week 1. He's back, ready to go. You got Larry Fitzgerald, who had a great receiving season last season. Hasn't really looked like he's taken a step back, so I'm sure he's going to be ready to go. You got a defense who's got a real good mixture of young players and vets out there. All right, I wouldn't say it's a top 5 defense, but it is a top 10 defense. And I'd say the coaching staff, even though they're not with Bruce Arians anymore, is still pretty solid. All right, like I said, they went 8-8 last year. I think they might have gotten better. Who's to say they don't make the playoffs this season? Okay, everyone's talking about the 49ers as far as that up-and-coming team in the NFC West. What if it's the Cardinals? All right. That's not really that far off to think of. But nonetheless, they're not going to win the Super Bowl because Sam Bradford's never really been good enough to get a team that far. And, yeah, Sam Bradford just isn't good enough to get him that far. Okay? And if they throw in Josh Rosen, he's a rookie. I don't really expect him to do too much in his first season. Have we ever seen a rookie quarterback win a Super Bowl? I don't believe so. All right. I don't believe so. So, yeah, as far as the Cardinals, they got a real good team. They're going to be good for the near future. But it's just a point where, as of right now, their quarterback situation isn't good enough to where they can go out and win a Super Bowl. All right. The Cardinals are, I don't know. You know, yeah, no, Sam Bradford just, there's no way. Sam Bradford just isn't good enough to get him that far. Okay. And I just think with a new head coach, you drafted a quarterback this year. All right, I just think that it's just not in the stars to happen. All right. So that's why the Cardinals aren't winning the Super Bowl. Then we got the San Francisco 49ers. All right. The ultimate hype team of the season. Last year, Jimmy Garoppolo starts 5 games, plays in 6. They win all 6. Okay. Now, he gets his big money deal, and it's Jimmy G season all year long over in Santa Clara, not even San Francisco. Okay. 49ers aren't winning the Super Bowl this year, mainly because they're too young and they're not good enough. All right. They have no number 1 receiver. They have a bunch of running backs who have been backups their entire careers. Okay, and like I've said, when you got a guy who's been doing a certain job his entire career, do you really expect him to pick up something new and excel at that? That's never been the case in the NFL. All right, number 2 receivers have always been number 2 receivers. It's kind of like over in Dallas. They're making Allen Hurns their number 1 receiver. When on earth has Allen Hurns ever been a number 1 receiver? Okay. When on earth has Jerick McKinnon ever been the number 1 running back for the Vikings? People say, oh, we had Adrian Peterson there. Cool, Adrian Peterson left. The Vikings still felt the need to draft another running back, and they made that guy the starter. All right, but you're going to tell me that Jerick McKinnon's going to be the guy when he's never shown that once in his career? Come on now. All right, Matt Breida, he's a Chris Thompson at best, meaning he's going to be a guy who can run the ball a bit, catch the ball in the backfield, but he's not going to be your number 1 guy. All right. And maybe it's just a point where the 49ers are running a type of offense where it's just the system type of thing, where you plug guys in certain spots and they'll excel in those roles. Maybe that's what it is, kind of like a New England Patriots type of thing. But, I mean, as of right now, I'm more inclined to believe that Jerick McKinnon isn't going to be a solid number 1 running back, mainly because he's never done that before. And that they're going to struggle at receiver a bit because Pierre Garçon's never been a number 1 receiver. Marcus Goodwin is not a number 1 receiver. And Dante Pettis, I mean, I'm sure they're expecting him to be, but we'll have to wait and see about him. As for the defense right now, I said it's probably about the better half of the NFL teams. Probably top 15, but nonetheless, still young and still needs development. So I just don't think San Francisco's ready for that type of run right now. Maybe in the next few years, but as far as this season, yeah, it's not happening. Okay? Kyle Shanahan, John Lynch done well so far, but give it some time. All right, then we got the LA Rams. On paper, the most complete team in the NFL, but we don't play on paper. Okay? Add in Ndamukong Suh, Marcus Peters, Aqib Talib, Brandon Cooks. You got Todd Gurley coming off of a great year, Jared Goff coming off of a great year, the rest of that defense coming off of a real great year. All right, team made the playoffs last year, lost to the Falcons in the wild card round. I expected that given the fact that that Rams team has never really seen the playoffs and that the Falcons were Super Bowl runner-ups the year before that. So, I mean, it's just a matter of experience there. All right. Had the best offense in the league, one of the best coaches in the league, now trying to take that next step up. And obviously their goal this year is to win the Super Bowl. You don't bring in Sue, you don't bring in Peters, you don't bring in Talib, you don't bring in Cooks to just make the playoffs. You do that to win it all. Okay? And I mean, I like the moves personally. All right? It's like, yeah, they added a lot of big-name players, but they added them in spots of need. They needed a number 1 receiver. Okay? They needed secondary help. The Ndamukong Suh one, that's more of a luxury pickup, I'd say. Okay, but as far as Cooks, Talib, and Peters, I'm okay with that given the fact that they did need help with the secondary. Like I said, they did need a number 1 receiver. Given how good Robert Woods was at home, he wasn't as good on the road. You need a guy who could do it in both ways. Okay. But if there was a reason why they wouldn't win the Super Bowl, is exactly because of the fact that they did bring in a lot of big-name players. It's a lot of egos you brought in. Okay? Maybe that's one of the reasons why it won't work. I think it'll be fine, but if I had to pick a reason why, it'd be something like that. Because like I said, on paper, they got one of the best defenses. They got one of the best offenses, if not the best offense and not the best defense. Okay. Like I said, Marcus Peters is not afraid to speak his mind. Neither is Aqib Talib. All right. And you got Aaron Donald and Ndamukong Suh playing in the middle together. Someone's production is going to go down unless it just evens out. Which even then, so if it evens out, neither player is where they want to be. Okay. As far as stats and all that. So like I said, if the Rams weren't to win the Super Bowl this year, it'd be due to the fact that it's just way too many star players and egos brought in one off season. So I think they're going to be fine. I think the Rams are definitely going to win the Super Bowl within the next few years. But like I said, for this season, that'd be probably the biggest reason why they wouldn't. So we'll see about it, though. I mean, I do like the Rams. I do like Sean McVay. I think Jared Goff's going to be a very good quarterback. Todd Gurley, obviously one of the best running backs in the league. But we'll just have to wait and see how it all goes down. This AFC or NFC West going to have a lot of good teams in it, so we'll see. But nonetheless, we're going to wrap it up here. Next up, I'm going to be talking about the NFC South, so stay tuned, and I'll be right back.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
All right, and welcome back to the GSMC Football Podcast. So far today, I've told you why your favorite team in the NFC West or AFC West isn't going to be winning the Super Bowl this year. I know you're angry because I said something that you didn't agree with, but nonetheless, I'm probably right. All right, only one team gets to win the Super Bowl. Chances are I'm only going to be wrong about one team. All right, so I'm going to get 31 of these right. That's pretty solid, I'd say. Okay. I mean, getting 31 out of 32 teams right, that's an A. All right, I think it's an A+. So I'm going to be right about why 31 of these teams aren't winning the Super Bowl. There's going to be a 32nd team where I'm wrong about. Maybe I'm wrong about your team. Okay? Maybe you're a Browns fan. Maybe I'm wrong about them. Maybe I've been wrong about the New York Giants. Maybe I've been wrong about the New York Jets. Probably not that one. Okay? Could have been wrong about the Steelers. Could have been wrong about the Patriots, obviously. But nonetheless, like I said, your team, chances are I'm right. Your team's not going to win the Super Bowl, but it's cool. We still got to wait and see. All right, but nonetheless, we talked about the AFC West, the NFC West. Now we're going to be talking about the NFC South. A lot of good teams in this division, let me tell you. All right, 3 of them made the playoffs last year. All right. Saints beat the Panthers in the wild card round. Falcons beat the Rams in the wild card round. Falcons lost to the Eagles in the divisional round, which was an all-time worst game. I mean, one of the worst playoff games I've ever watched. It was about as terrible as it could be. Okay. And as for the Saints, I mean, lost in heartbreaking fashion to the Vikings. And, I mean, chances are the Eagles still won the Super Bowl even if the Vikings lose to the Saints. But Saints maybe could have put up a better fight in the NFC Championship game. All right. So, yeah, division's looking pretty good. Let's start off with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, though. They're not going to win the Super Bowl because Jameis isn't smart enough to take him there. Okay, I've always been a big Jameis defender as far as his play on the field. Obviously, his off-the-field stuff has got him into some trouble. And it seems that it's starting to come back up. Jameis has got to be a more mature quarterback and pretty much just got to, like I said, that's it. He's got to mature in order for this team to have any shot of being successful at all. Okay, I'm not even sure if the Buccaneers are a team that want to bring Jameis back. All right, I mean, they knew what they were getting into with him. Okay, it was a matter of they just had to trust that he'd be mature enough to do well during his time in the NFL. Obviously, that's not the case because if he was, he wouldn't be get suspended for 3 games this season. Okay. And if you're the Bucs and you're playing in the NFC South, you can't afford to not have your franchise quarterback for 3 games. You need him there for every game because every game's going to matter. All right. So the Bucs aren't going to win the Super Bowl because their quarterback can't get out of his own way. That's it right there. All right. Once Jameis figures it out, the Bucs are going to be a very good team. But until then, they're going to just keep toeing on the line of mediocrity. All right. Jameis Winston does have the tools to become a top 5 quarterback. It's just his mind is what keeps him from being that. All right, as far as off the field issues and interceptions on the field and bad decisions on the field. Okay, he's got to clean that up. Like I said, until then, Tampa Bay is not winning a thing. Okay. And I mean, like I said, you can't afford to have your quarterback not there for the first 3 games of the season. Because you play in one of the toughest divisions in the NFL, if not the toughest division. All right. And I mean, looking at their schedule for those first 3 games, I know they got Pittsburgh. They got the Saints, Pittsburgh, and the Eagles. Well, Saints, Eagles, then Pittsburgh. All right. They're going to go 0-3. Because you're playing in New Orleans. You're playing the Super Bowl champs week 2. And then you got to play Pittsburgh on Monday night. All right. You think Ryan Fitzpatrick's going to be able to get it done against the Steelers? No. You think he's going to be able to beat New Orleans in New Orleans? No. You think he's going to be able to beat the defending Super Bowl champions? No. Okay. So the Tampa Bay Bucks, their season's going to be over once it starts. All right, so they have no chance at winning the Super Bowl this season. Also, they got to see if that defense has gotten any better. And, yeah, I mean, their defense was almost as bad as Oakland's last season, if not worse. Okay. So, Tampa Bay has no shot at winning the Super Bowl this year, just mainly because their quarterback is a knucklehead. All right. Then we got the Carolina Panthers. They made the playoffs last year. They went 11-5, nearly won the division, lost due to a tiebreaker. Okay, lose to the Saints in the playoffs. They lost to the Saints in the playoffs because their secondary was weak. All right. When it came down to it, Drew Brees made the throws he needed to make, and there was no real limitations there. Okay. The Panthers won't win the Super Bowl this year because this is tough because I can't see the Panthers actually winning it this season. All right. Let's see. Let's look at the Panthers draft. What exactly did they do here? All right. They drafted DJ Moore in the first round. I like it. Okay, getting Cam, his number 1 receiver. Hasn't really had one since Steve Smith left, and Steve Smith looked like he was on the way out once Cam Newton got drafted, so didn't even have the great Steve Smith there, at least in his prime. So they drafted DJ Moore. I think he's the best receiver in the draft. They drafted Dante Jackson and Rashawn Golden, both cornerbacks. Jackson from LSU, Golden from Tennessee in the 2nd and 3rd round. You took Jermaine Carter in the 5th round, cornerback out of Maryland. All right. They did well here. They drafted a lot on defense and drafted for need on offense when they needed to. DJ Moore, Ian Thomas, tight end. All right. The others were cornerback picks and linebacker picks, and then 1 defensive tackle pick. All right. The Panthers are conscious of what they need to work on. Okay. But as for why they won't win the Super Bowl this year, let's see. You get the Cowboys. Obviously, you got to play the division twice. You got to play the NFC East. This is tough. Okay. But let's see. Why won't they? I mean, there's no reason to say why they can't. All right. I'll say their offense doesn't produce the same way they had hoped. Okay, I'm sure they got big plans for DJ Moore and all, but it seems that a lot of these receivers coming into the league the last few years in their rookie season seemingly have needed more time to develop. All right, plus Cam Newton isn't exactly the most accurate quarterback in the league, so I'm going to go out and say their offense is what's going to keep them from truly contending. I mean, like I said, there's not much to nitpick with here with the Panthers. They're a very good team. All right, but I'll say that's going to come down to their offense. Then we got the Falcons. Why aren't they winning the Super Bowl? Because they got internal problems with them and Julio Jones. Okay, last year Julio Jones had a bit of a down year. Didn't really get a lot of red zone looks. Now he's looking for a higher paid deal. Seemingly, Falcons aren't too happy with the fact he's been working with Terrell Owens. Julio Jones isn't happy with the fact that Jarvis Landry's making more money than him. And like I said, last year the offense looked terrible compared to the year before that, and I think this year the offense really isn't going to change too much. You drafted Calvin Ridley out of Alabama, but that's all great. I still don't think that Steve Sarkisian is going to do well with this team. All right, so I think their offense is what's going to keep them from winning the Super Bowl this season, talking about the Falcons. And then we got the New Orleans Saints. Okay. What's going to keep them from winning it? Dare I say it, Drew Brees. All right. Drew Brees last season had, I mean, statistically wise, one of the worst since he came into the league. All right. I think his touchdown numbers were, let's see, So Drew Brees last season threw for 23 touchdowns. That was his lowest since 2003, his third year in the league. The second year, that year he started only 11 games. All right. Threw 8 interceptions. That was also his lowest since 2004. But nonetheless, he threw for 4,300 yards. That was his lowest since 2005. Okay. So, I mean, statistically, it was his worst season in New Orleans. And obviously, I think that's due to the fact that Drew Brees is getting older. Okay, he can't necessarily do the same things that he could before. Now you need guys like Kamara, Ingram, and that defense to step up. Okay? And I just think that Drew Brees is going to be the reason why they don't win it this season. All right? And that's a bit of a hot take by me, I'd say. Let's see. Like, against Minnesota, he threw 2 picks. I mean, he threw 3 picks in those 2 games. All right, all combined. He did throw for 376 yards against Carolina, but like I said, I mean, that was just a matter of Carolina had a really weak secondary, and I think that's what killed him in that game. All right, against the Vikings, he threw for 294 yards, did throw for 3 touchdowns. But nonetheless, yeah, the Saints aren't winning the Super Bowl because of Drew Brees. Like I said, he's getting older. His arm isn't what it used to be, and it seems like he's on the outside of his career. All right, outside looking in. So, I mean, Saints do actually, like, in all honesty, in all seriousness, do have a legit chance of winning the Super Bowl. But if it was going to come down to one reason, I'd say it'd be Drew Brees. Okay? So we'll see there. But nonetheless, that's why none of the teams in the NFC South are winning the Super Bowl this season. Next up, we're going to be talking about the AFC South and wrapping it up. So stay tuned for that, and I will be right back.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC to the extreme cage fighting, we got the fights covered.
Listen.
It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts, past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
All right, and welcome back to the GSMC Football Podcast. So far today, I've told you why your team over in the AFC West, the NFC West, and the NFC South isn't going to win the Super Bowl this year. Now I'm going to tell you why your favorite team in the AFC South isn't going to win the Super Bowl this year. All right. And like I said, I'm going to be right about 31 of these teams. Okay? So after this, I'm going to look like a genius. All right? But no, in all honesty, I mean, I'm just trying to point out your team's weaknesses to you. All right, so let's look at the AFC South. What do we got going on here? We got Marcus Mariota, we got Blake Bortles, we got Andrew Luck, at least we hope and think. And then we got Deshaun Watson. Okay? All young quarterbacks except for Luck. I don't know, is Luck still considered a young quarterback? I mean, he got drafted in 2012. I think, Bortles came in 2014. So, I mean, he's barely coming off his rookie contract. So, I guess now he's a vet. Watson and Mariota still young quarterbacks because they're still rookies. So I guess two young quarterbacks, 2 veterans. All right. But Blake Bortles, I guess you kind of, he's like in the middle right there, I guess. All right. But nonetheless, let's start off with the Colts. Why aren't they winning the Super Bowl? They're not winning the Super Bowl because that team refuses to put talent around their all-time great quarterbacks. Okay. And all-time great, used a little bit loosely for Andrew Luck. Peyton Manning definitely is an all-time great. Andrew Luck, if he were to stay healthy for the rest of his career, would be an all-time great. All right, but nonetheless, T.Y. Hilton is Andrew Luck's number 1 receiver. Fine. That's fine. That is good. T.Y. Hilton has shown he could be a number 1 receiver. Who's his number 2 receiver? Ryan Grant? The guy who has been in the league for 5 years, hasn't really been able to hold down a starting position, and seemingly enough has been the guy who's had basically decent game stats for his season stats, meaning for a season he'd go with 9 catches, 78 yards, and a touchdown. That looks great in a game. For a season, not too good. All right. Not trying to hate on Ryan Grant. He really hasn't gotten much of an opportunity. But nonetheless, when I see that you're the number 2 receiver and you've done that so far, it doesn't necessarily make me think, oh, wow, yes, they finally got it. Okay? You don't have a starting running back. I mean, I guess Marlon Mack's going to be the guy, but Marlon Mack just showed us flashes of what he could do last season. Okay? And as far as the defense, it's not great. It's not great at all. Okay? That's what Jim Irsay and those guys expect Andrew Luck to lead. Come on now. On offense, at least you got Jack Doyle and T.Y. Hilton. Defense, it's not looking great at all. All right, they're not winning the Super Bowl mainly because they don't have a team good enough to win a Super Bowl. All right, so that's what I got to think about the Colts. As for the Titans, I think they're going to be a very good team this season. They're going to be an exciting team to watch this season. I'm very excited to see the Titans and Bears this season. All right, Bears are going to have a real dynamic offense, and so are the Titans, and I think this is going to be Marcus Mariota's best year so far of his career. All right. And can you put money on that? Like Marcus Mariota to have statistically the best season of his career so far? Is that a bet you could place? Because I feel like that's all kind of relative given the fact that it's all opinions and all. But nonetheless, I mean, the Titans brought in Matt LaFleur to be the offensive coordinator. Like I said, was the QB coach for Matt Ryan the year he won the MVP. Was the offensive coordinator for Jared Goff and the Rams this past season. We saw what they did. All right, now he's with the Titans. I think he's going to turn this offense into a good one. I think Marcus Mariota is going to look great. But there's got to be a reason why this team doesn't win the Super Bowl this season. Okay. I'm going to head over to the defense for that one. Last year, their secondary looked weak. It let them down in the playoffs. This year, they brought in Malcolm Butler. But I think that bringing in one guy isn't necessarily going to fix your problems. And also, looking at the receivers, you got Corey Davis. He did show potential in that playoff game against the Patriots, but nonetheless didn't really do anything else this past season. And your second receiver would be Rashard Matthews. That's not necessarily the greatest wide receiver corpse. All right. I like Derrick Henry. I like Deion Lewis, but other than that, I just don't think this team is built enough to go out and win a Super Bowl. Okay. I do think Mariota is going to be fine this season. He's going to have the best year of his career, but defense isn't going to be what you need it to be. It's not going to be Super Bowl caliber. And you need more help at the receiver spot, unless Corey Davis just reps for a big year in his second season. Okay? And we got the Houston Texans. All right. Houston got Deshaun Watson as their quarterback. Was a top 10 quarterback last year when he was playing. Tears his ACL in practice. J.J. Watt gets hurt. Whitney Merciless gets hurt. I mean, the whole team seemingly got hurt. All right. Once they throw out Tom Savage, I mean, season's over. And now it's a point where what can the Texans do this season with a healthy team? Okay. On paper, they do have a team that could win the Super Bowl. We already know Deshaun Watson's a very good quarterback. Okay, he showed us that. We know that with J.J. Watt healthy, him and Jadeveon Clowney are going to cause havoc. Then you got Whitney Merciless coming back from his injury, who's a very good linebacker. Bernard McKinney, who you just extended. And you got a very good secondary where you just added Tyrann Mathieu. All right, it seems like they're going to be playing him at the safety spot. And he's going to cause a lot of trouble there for opposing quarterbacks. All right. As far as the offense, you got DeAndre Hopkins, Will Fuller, who looked great with Deshaun Watson. You got Lamar Miller at the running back spot. I mean, what more could you ask for this team? Okay. But I'm going to say they don't, given the fact that Deshaun Watson needs more experience. Okay. I think he's going to play fine when he's out there. But there's a point where kind of like Jared Goff last season when they made the playoffs, it's a new moment. All right. Deshaun Watson's never really been in that type of moment. I get, yeah, he's won a national championship and all that in college. I could care less what you did in college. All right. Once you're an NFL player, it's all about what you do there. And last time I checked, Deshaun Watson's never played in the playoffs. All right. So I think that's going to be a little bit too big of a moment there. But nonetheless, okay. I think they're a team who could get the Super Bowl within the next few years. It's just this year, they got to pay their dues before they win it. All right. So there's that. Then we got the Jacksonville Jaguars. Okay. Jacksonville, I really like them as a team. One of my favorite teams to watch last season. Defense was amazing. Leonard Fournette was amazing. Okay. Blake Bortles played well. Wide receivers, young and ready to go. Last year, they made it to the AFC Championship game. Probably should have came away with the win there, but I feel like it was a little bit of some coaching mistakes. Maybe they played a little bit scared in the second half. A little too timid is what killed them. All right. This year, can they make it to the Super Bowl? Yes. Can they win the Super Bowl? Yes. All right. But I'm going to say the only thing that could really hold them back is Blake Bortles and that receiving corps. All right. You brought back Marquise Lee. You let go to Allen Robinson. You let go of Allen Hurns. Now it's Keenan Cole, D.D. Westbrook, Marquise Lee, and Blake Bortles. Blake Bortles played fine last season. I'm not too worried about him. But if I do have to nitpick, that's the one that scares me the most right there. All right, not Blake Bortles, but the receivers also. Okay? I think this team's going to be good this season. I think their defense is going to be just as good as they were last season. All right? They spent a lot of the draft on defense. Okay? But it's just a point where Blake Bortles, for most of his career, hasn't necessarily been great. We've only seen 1 year out of Blake Bortles where he could be a competent quarterback. How do we know that he could replicate that for 2 years in a row? We've never seen something like that before from him. Okay? So like I said, I'm nitpicking here, but it's got to be Blake Bortles is the reason why they wouldn't win a Super Bowl this season. Okay? Plus, you still got to go through the Patriots. Steelers are going to be looking for you again. All right? Your division's going to be extremely tough. And you got an AFC West who's going to have a lot of good teams out there too, just in case you got to meet them in the playoffs. All right. So Jacksonville, they do have a Super Bowl caliber defense. They do have one of the best running backs in the league. Okay. But it's to the point where wide receivers and the quarterback kind of scare me a bit. All right. Not a lot, but a bit. So we'll have to wait and see what ends up happening with them. But if anything were to keep them from winning a Super Bowl, it'd be Blake Bortles and those receivers. So we'll see what ends up going down. But nonetheless, we're going to wrap it up here. Today I told you why your favorite team in either the AFC West, the NFC West, NFC South, or AFC South isn't going to be winning the Super Bowl. Of course, I'm going to be wrong about one of those teams. I mean, if I had to make my way to early Super Bowl pick right now, I'd say it's I kind of want to go with the Panthers. All right? I really like the team they got right now. But I don't know. I'm not ready for a Super Bowl pick yet, so we're going to hold on that. But nonetheless, we're going to wrap it up. Like I said, thanks for listening to the GSMC Football Podcast. As always, I am your host, Jesse Tapia. I will be back tomorrow, and we will be talking about a whole new set of things tomorrow. So stay tuned for that, and I will talk to you guys later.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.